Hello and welcome to the Future Report. This is our Christmas episode. We've got ourselves a deal, 20% off on our shop. So if you go to GameReadyTech.com, you can find that deal there. Let's hop right into the episode. We've got a lot to cover.
Sure, I'll start us off. So, ARC B580 was just released recently, and in a surprise to absolutely everyone, it's really competitive. So let's talk a little bit about what I'm talking about. A little repetitive there. So a couple of YouTubers made a few videos on kind of what their initial impressions were of the card. Obviously, there's some details that we don't quite know yet because embargo's only just been lifted, so a lot of this stuff is very early. From the charts that I found here, you can actually find a few of them on sites like Google 3D and Tom's Hardware, but one of the main ones that I was looking at was one that kind of demonstrated how it compares to the 4060, which is the main card that it is competing with. So I can pull that up right here, and I will get right into those details.
So while we're waiting on that, oh no, you got that.
I did actually get it. I got a little faster.
We'll hop into the next one then.
So the main important points for this card, the things that really set it apart, is the fact that it's cheap. So to get this card, they're trying to sell it in the United States at least for around $250. That's just where they're trying to put it. That's the MSRP. It's competing with the 4060, which is a worse card in most metrics, but is priced at around $330. So that's kind of the bar they're trying to set here, is a little cheaper, but a little better.
At least competitive price.
Correct. So the thing with the 4060 is that the base model only has 8 gigs of VRAM. So the first thing that the 580 does to ensure that it's a little better is it ships with 12. Not only does it ship with 12, it ships with a wider memory bus, and that actually demonstrates better performance in most of the games that have been tested between the two. So in a couple of games, it falls behind, and this is actually the pre-release drivers. They did fix this, but in most of the games, it sits at about 4 to 6% faster. So you're basically saving $60, $70 depending on where you're buying it from, and you're getting 6%, 5% performance. So not bad. So from this release, it gets even more interesting because just following the release, NVIDIA releases and says they're going to release the 5060 and the 5060 Ti. I don't know about the 5070 yet, but those two cards are going to be shipping early now to try to match the B580's early competitive performance. So they're saying it's going to be the same kind of thing that we've had from the last gen. The 5060 base model will come with 8 gigs VRAM, and you're going to be expected to pay 30 to 40%.
Yeah, we're still going to have to wait till February, though. February or March, that's what they're saying.
February, March. Okay.
February.
There you go. It's not as early as I was thinking, but still early.
It says early to mid-2025, but they're probably going to try and push it sooner. Like, they're probably going to try and keep pushing to get it sooner, but as of right now, it still says early to mid. So and we're not even at the beginning of the year yet. So, I mean, at least they're saying that they're going to get it out sooner, but NVIDIA has always pushed their dates off. Like, they almost always delay it.
I mean, the 5090 is already late. 5090 was supposed to come out sometime October, November, based on the leaks. It's now December, and there's no sign of it. So
yeah, but leaks are only so.
True, but usually the 49, like the 90s class, have come end of year, like kind of as like a precursor to the rest of the generation. 40 series was late, so maybe it's just a repeat of the same trend. But in terms of, or on the same note of repeating trends, the 5060 is only going to ship with 8 for the base, and then the Ti will be the 16 gig model.
No, the Ti has 8.
Ti has 8 as well.
Yeah.
So it's the base model that has
the 5060 Ti. Hang on, let me see.
Let's see. There's the 4060 8 gig.
Oh, never mind. Nope, you're right. 5060 Ti has 16.
Okay.
The 4060 Ti had 6 or 8.
Yeah. So it's just
that was my confusion there because the 4060 and 4060 Ti were like the exact same card.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing with the 60 that's been frustrating to me is that it's always had weird VRAM, but it was before, back like 1060 days, you could cheap out and get a 3 gig and be fine.
Yeah.
And then get a 6 gig and be very well off for the foreseeable future, where nowadays it feels like you have to get the Ti or you're not going to even get by anymore. 8 gigs just doesn't seem to cut it like it used to.
Yeah. Do you want to quickly talk about? Do you think there was any type of strategy for Intel releasing early, or do you think it was some type of mistake?
We both kind of talked about it because there were it was Mind.
Yeah, Mind Factory, I think.
So is it Mind Factory? So tell them about what happened with that then.
So Mind Factory. Mind Factory released early.
This is
there are some speculations about this for the B570. Yeah, Mind Factory released ahead of the official schedule. So we don't know if this was some type of mistake, or there's not really that much information on it. But my thoughts, if it was Intel that actually said you can release early, it must have been some type of push to try and get NVIDIA to release early so that they didn't have as much time to like perfect their product.
It could have also just been a push for the Christmas season if you think about it as well.
There's
it could have
that
been a
too.
bit more innocent.
But one of the things I thought was interesting is over on Guru 3D they say that other retailers are observing a sales embargo.
What date was that from?
This was 10 hours ago. So yeah, on December 15th, Mind Factory updated its stock to that they are actually selling. So it wasn't a mistake that Mind Factory made. Maybe Mind Factory never received an embargo, so they just got to sell, and there was no legal actions that could be taken against them, or they're going directly against their embargo. Like there's a lot of different things that could be happening right now.
It's a smart move from Intel because one of the small things that I picked up on when I was watching some of my research, like when I was researching the cards originally, was one of the things that they're doing better than NVIDIA right now is supposedly, this is alleged, as obviously since we don't actually have the physical product, but their upscaling technology has increased, or their performance has increased, and it's matured to the point where in many tests it can actually outperform DLSS.
Okay.
Their drivers have many known issues with games that don't actually support this framework, but for the launch title that they are making sure has the driver support for when the card comes out to make a good impression, the impression's really good.
And Intel has been incredibly diligent with releasing updates for those drivers too. They release them all the time, and it's not just like small firmware or software fixes like small things. It's like this will significantly increase the performance of your card per driver update, depending on the update.
I think it's a testament because, well, it's a testament in two ways. The first way is that this is the 580. This isn't the flagship for the series. So it's good, but supposedly there's better on the horizon for Intel. What's impressive is that this card is outperforming their last generation flagship. But then what's even more impressive is that flagship has become so competitive to the point where it's on the same charts as this one and the cards that came after that last flagships, meaning that it came out a year, more so like a year, 4 months ago, I believe is when it came out.
Something like that.
And it's basically had its performance, it's been put on nitro from these driver fixes since it came out. So it's really impressive that Intel's managed to keep this thing that looked like it would have ended up being a paperweight competitive just from being diligent to maintain the silicon and just get as much possible juice out of it as possible. It's really impressive. So it's an interesting state that Intel's in as a whole because their CPUs have been very uninteresting in the last 6 months. From my own observation, I found them very uninteresting. Yeah. And their GPUs are nothing but bursting with life and energy.
The initial launch of the the Alchemist? Mm-hmm. Yeah, when they first launched Alchemist, there was so many doubts. It was really not a good card at first, and then with some of those updates, it has just been getting so much better. And the flagship of the last generation, and then now with the new Battle Mage, I'm really excited to see that there is actually competition going on, because there was some doubts even after Alchemist dropped that they weren't going to keep going because of the budget cuts.
I was afraid from the layoff that happened during like in
Yeah, didn't
August,
they?
there was that massive
It was
layoff.
like 500 or something.
It was more than that. I think it was in the thousands. But I
Really?
was afraid that
I
the
didn't know if it was
Alchemist.
500 or 5,000.
I think it might have been more than that. But I'm not quite sure. From what I was, my concern was that they were going to cut the Alchemist team
Yeah.
because they were good graphics cards. But to be completely honest with you, where Intel makes the most money from their graphics cards, most likely is in their mobile department. You ship an Intel chip in a laptop.
15,000.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But when Intel makes money from their graphics cards, I assume more often than not it's coming from a laptop. It's probably not coming from a mid-range or independent graphics card. It's most likely coming out of an iGPU. So for them to keep Alchemist around long enough for them to go into Battle Mage now is a very good sign. And I think it's going to pay off for them because from what we're seeing, the team does not need any help when it comes to performance. They're really pushing the envelope. So I can appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate that they stuck with that idea that they can really crush the GPU market from the bottom.
They weren't necessarily from the bottom because a lot of the great minds were over at Arc right now.
I'm not saying the bottom as in like they were at the bottom of the charts. I'm saying the bottom of GPUs.
Yeah,
Like
I understand.
they're not going for the flagship like everyone does.
Mhm.
They've all of these companies like Nvidia and AMD. I say all of these, and there's two. They've kind of just been trying to compete for the best card, but there was like there was like very lacking at the bottom. Like budget computers, there wasn't that many. If you wanted to
I
make
would
a,
say any because we've been reusing budget
that's what
cards
I'm
for
saying.
years.
If you really want to build a budget computer, you need to get an old card
Yeah,
or like a used old card,
or
but at
compromise
a
heavily on other parts of the build.
yeah that it wasn't really it wasn't really a thing to be able to build a brand new budget computer. But now that we've got the Intel cards, it's making Nvidia and AMD start trying again for the lower half of the market. At least that's what I'm thinking and I'm hoping for the future.
I never understood why the business shifted the way that it did. Like, I understand that it makes more money, but it also creates a lot of unhappy customers who probably won't buy from you again. Like, the only reason we're in a position where AMD graphics cards are even at the state that they're in is because people got sick of being screwed over by Nvidia. And now people are, getting tired of getting price gouged by AMD because Nvidia is doing it. And now they're looking for an alternative again, and that's why we have Intel. Like, if Nvidia had just stuck to their guns and did no compromise mid-tier graphics cards like we were doing back in 2016. To be fair, I mean, it could be worse in some ways because we wouldn't have good competition still, but wouldn't it be better for Nvidia to have that majority of the market without much competition? Just from a business standpoint, it doesn't really make sense to me.
Yeah, they're crushing the server market right now. So they're taking their focus off of like people buying their GPUs and more like companies. But not GPUs like consumer GPUs, but the server GPUs and CPUs and processors in general. So it's not really focused on the actual consumers.
I mean, the consumer is basically treated like a corporation. Like when I'm looking at I'm actually have the page up right now, and I'm just thinking about it as you're talking, and you're basically treated like you're a business when you're buying a graphics card from Nvidia at this point, because when you're a business and something doesn't quite meet your expectations, your wallet's going to be deeper than the average person's, so it doesn't hurt you to climb to the next product to get the benefits you need. Whereas for, let's say, like an 18-year-old person, one job, I need a computer, that is considerably more difficult to get that customer to buy up 2 or 3 tiers. Like the way I see it, you have the 8 gigabytes VRAM for the 5060, you have 16 for the Ti, but then it's not a $70 difference like it used to be. It's like $200 difference. But then you don't get that extra processing power. So to get the processing power, you're required to jump to a 70. And then the 70 doesn't have as much VRAM, it only has 12. So then if you want to get the processing power and the VRAM, you're forced to jump from the 5060 8 gig all the way up to the not released yet 5080 or 5080 Ti, which are $1,000 right now, MSRP. So, I mean, you basically upsell someone 4 times the worth of the initial entry product, just so that way all the bases are covered. It just doesn't really make sense as a user.
Yeah, it's not really like the Apple maneuver where they just everything's a little bit more, but everything needs a little bit more.
Everything's a compromise at some level.
Yeah.
That requires you to.
It requires you to spend more until you get the flagship item. So this is just kind of like, do you need something expensive? Here's something expensive.
Yeah, because they basically price them like boutique items at that point.
Yeah,
like $40.90 for $2,500.
Yeah, that's
$50.90 for.
It's like whatever. Buying a table.
Yeah,
like
if it's not an IKEA table, it's $3,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
or a couch or something.
Yeah. So it's disappointing, to say the least. I think that NVIDIA is doing well to a degree. Like, I think they're doing some things right. Like, I think that the 5060 in pre-builds will be a good move for a lot of people because it's going to basically cover all the bases for the average video editor gamer. But when you're on the enthusiast market and you have to build these for yourself and you're not getting OEM deals or deals by the pallet, it's going to hurt a lot more. So either way, I think NVIDIA, or let me rephrase, I think Intel made a good move pushing this card to release early, and I'm happy that they're confident in the card enough that they were willing to release it when they did to get it right in line with the rest of the
I also think it's going to be a good time of the year to list their item, because then a lot of people are buying computers for the holidays to give to loved ones for Christmas and stuff like that. So it's a good time because not everybody wants to spend $2,000 on a computer.
You shouldn't have to spend $2,000 on a computer.
So I think realistically there are some really good budget options now that this card is released.
Well, do you want to even
the new Intel cores?
Intel cores?
Yeah.
Okay, well, 2 words: profoundly uninteresting. They're very uninteresting.
Thanks for tuning in.
So we'll stick on this for a couple minutes. So they just released these a few months ago. We're a little late, admittedly. We're a little late on a lot of things. But the thing with these chips that kind of rubbed me the wrong way was this is kind of just Intel folding under pressure at this point. Like, everyone knew that the 13700 or the 1300 series had their problems, and they expected that Intel would fix them with the 14th gen, and it just didn't happen. It was another refresh upon a refresh without actual meaningful changes to make the chips more stable.
What is it? What is the new one? It's like the Core something Ultra?
Core Ultra 285K is the 9 model. Plus, they've obfuscated the naming scheme again, and now it's worse. But that's not like my complaints. I think the thing with these chips that makes them very difficult to get behind in any meaningful way is the fact that there's features missing from these, and they're more expensive than their counterparts from AMD. So when you're going to build a new system, there's not really a guarantee that they're going to stick to this socket, so you're not 100% sure that the chip is going to even support upgrades in the future to the same board. Plus, they're very expensive. And when it comes down to the raw performance, they fall behind in quite a few benchmarks. So they do run nicely. Bless you.
Thank you.
Usually that's me. They perform well when you compare them to others.
These are not up for sale right now, right?
They should be. Yeah, they are.
They are?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my. Yes. On Newegg.
Yeah.
$895. And 0 cents.
It just, ow.
I'm surprised it's not $899.95 or something.
I'm out here looking at, so you're looking at the Intel prices. I'm over here looking at the AMD Ryzen 9 9950X for a meager $599. In comparison. Meager in comparison.
And that's the flagship of AMD right now?
Until they make a 9950X3D or whatever, that's the best they've got. Ooh. And they're only asking $600, and it only pulls 170 watts. Like always. They're just sticking to their guns, and it's working. I could get this chip and the G-Skill Trident kit beneath it. It's like, what is this? 64 gigs of RAM, and it would still be around the same price. It would be about $800 for 64 gigs of DDR5.
Do you know what the TDP is on these?
No clue, actually. Excuse me. They're definitely less than historical.
I want to know what the TDP is on the Core 9 Ultra, or the Core Ultra 9.
So when I looked up the testing for these on YouTube, just to kind of see what people were saying about them, the consensus is that they're better in terms of power efficiency per core than the 14th generation, but then it's also offset by worse performance overall. So they're more power efficient, but it's kind of the same thing as downclocking a 14th gen to get better power output.
This is so disappointing.
It's what we should have expected because Intel was going to do their own fab, and now they're using TSMC.
Yeah.
And additionally, they have had nothing but bad luck with the last two generations in terms of stability.
Yeah, I can't even find a TDP for this.
Let me try looking. I feel like it's in the 200 range, but I could be wrong.
Processor base power is 125.
That's
Max
not
turbo
accurate.
power is 250. That's on Intel.
Okay, I feel like that the spikes go higher, but that's probably close enough.
Maximum turbo power is 250. That's what it says.
Apparently, a company called GroovesInc.com, never purchased from there before, but they have it on offer for $655. So $55 more than the 9950X. But to be completely real with you, it's still not worth it.
Do you know what the normal operating temperature is for these?
They don't run hot. They run, I think, 70s, 80s.
Well, if it's got really high TDP, then it will have a higher temperature.
The testing that was demonstrated did not show much of the temperature. It really only was intended to demonstrate its relative performance to other chips.
Yeah.
In its competitive pool. Which in those comparison videos, it did better in some things, worse in others. But most of the time it fell behind AMD and occasionally fell behind the 14 series. So right now, if you're going to be buying Intel because you have no other options, your best bet's just to buy like a used, or not used, but...
Ooh. Yeah, the Core Ultra 9 285K is 94 degrees.
That's not surprising though. That's not that bad either because that's what all the Ryzen chips, that's what their rated temperature is as well, as 95.
The 20 or the Core Ultra 5 245K is 61 degrees. That's pretty decent.
It's not bad.
Sorry. No, you're up. You're good.
I was gonna say the thing that's the most disappointing is that there's actually less features on these. So for the people who might be watching this who are power users, you're not going to have hyper threading anymore, and you're also not going to have AVX2 instructions. They've both been pulled. So it's not even like they're offering more features, but then the processor runs a little slower, but you at least get something out of it that's worthwhile.
Is there any redeeming quality about this chip?
If it was $500, yes. If it's at this current price, not at all. Even the 14900K is only $500. Only $500. But it offers a more comprehensive package for the entire thing. Now it does have good.
If you want Intel, buy Xeon.
Xeon is in the worst place it's ever been. But
I was joking anyway.
Old Xeon, I agree with that. I do agree with that. Where we're at, the last thing I'll say about there is one redeeming quality. If you want to run a lot of DDR5, like 96 gigs, 120 gigs, whatever, they're a bit more stable than the 14. So I mean, there's that. I guess if your business offers you a Core 9 Ultra 285K, don't say no. But if you have to pay for it out of pocket, just check to make sure that your workload will actually benefit from Intel's technology. If it doesn't, go AMD. That's my opinion. I know that there's things that AMD just doesn't do at all very well. Like there's things that they're very far behind in for certain workloads. Do your own research. But if you can avoid it because you can get something better, I wouldn't ride out blue this time. I would wait. Because I think that next generation, they're using a similar technology to get better yields. So they're going to be able to do kind of what AMD is doing, where every generation they're actually able to make a meaningful improvement because they just change a portion of the chip instead of AMD's or Intel's old approach of having one monolithic, massive piece of silicon, but that you have to change the whole thing of. So in the future, it'll be better.
I just think that right now, as of right now, AMD is a better option.
I would say across the board for gaming.
Yeah.
In gaming, which is kind of our thing.
Yeah, it hasn't always been that way, but right now.
I think watch the workloads because some programs are optimized for Intel specifically. So if you're professional and you need those hardware specific optimizations, research it first. If you're just a casual user or maybe even a bit of a power user and you do a little bit of everything, I think AMD is going to do you much better because you'll get a better deal right now. You'll get a better chip right now, most likely, and then in the future you can just swap it out for a better one when that inevitably comes out. I don't know. I think it's just a tough year for Intel on the CPU side.
All right.
Enough Intel. A lot of Intel today.
Yeah, pretty much all Intel.
Oh.
Completely Intel.
Not completely. There was some NVIDIA thrown in there.
Yeah, but that was only to talk about Intel.
It's true. NVIDIA now as a guest appearance. Who would have thought?
All right, well, don't forget our 20% off deal right now. That's going to be applied to the website, so go check out our store, GameReadyTech.com, and get yourself or any loved ones a Christmas gift.
All right, thank you so much for watching.